First contact gone wrong. Commander Vexthar of the 7th Talon Mercenary Legion had never lost a contract in 300 cycles of combat operations. His team's record spoke for itself. 17 successful planetary pacifications, 42 high-value target extractions, and more skirmish victories than he bothered to count. The 7th Talon was the elite of the elite, commanding fees that would bankrupt small star nations, which made their current situation absolutely incomprehensible. Status report. Vexthar demanded, his crystalline form pulsing with agitation as he studied the tactical display. The holographic readout showed his forces' carefully planned formation disintegrating in real time. We've lost contact with teams 3 through 7. His second-in-command, Krelax, reported. Her normally iridescent carapace had dulled to an anxious gray. Team 2 is. A burst of static erupted from the communications array. Team 2 is also gone, Commander. Vexthar's crystalline structure vibrated in frustration. This was supposed to be a simple operation. Secure the mining facility on Novus Prime, eliminate any resistance, and collect their substantial fee. The client had assured them they would face minimal opposition. Just a small contingent of primitive defenders from a newly spacefaring race called humans. Primitive. Right. Replay the last transmission from Team 3, Vexthar ordered. The tactical display shifted, showing helmet footage from his elite strike team. They had been advancing through the facility's lower levels when the attack began. There was no warning, no dramatic entrance. One moment the corridor was empty, the next. The footage showed dark shapes moving with impossible speed, their movements fluid and precise. Team 3 never stood a chance. Their energy shields, rated to stop heavy plasma fire, might as well have been tissue paper against the humans' projectile weapons. But it wasn't just the effectiveness of their attacks that disturbed Vexthar. It was their methodology. His forces were using standard combat protocols refined over millennia of warfare. The humans, they moved like predators, adapting their tactics moment by moment, using the environment in ways that defied conventional military doctrine. "They're in the walls," Krelax whispered, her sensory antennae twitching. "The maintenance shafts, the ventilation systems, they're treating the entire facility like their hunting ground." A new alert flashed across the tactical display. Team 1, Vexthar's personal guard unit, had detected movement in their sector. The commander watched in growing horror as red dots representing his elite warriors began winking out, one by one. "Pull everyone back to the command center," Vexthar ordered. Now. But it was too late. The lights in the command center flickered, then died. Emergency power kicked in, bathing everything in a blood-red glow. The doors, triple reinforced plasma steel, groaned in their frames. "They couldn't have breached our security that quickly," Krelax protested. "The encryption algorithms alone would take." The doors exploded inward. Through the smoke and debris, Vexthar caught glimpses of armored figures moving with that same predatory grace. Their armor was midnight black, adorned with symbols that his translator identified as meaning ghost wolves. The last thing Vexthar saw before his consciousness faded was one of the humans casually tossing something into the air. It was the quantum encryption module from their secure door, already disassembled. When Vexthar regained consciousness hours later, his entire force had been neutralized. Not killed. That was perhaps the most humiliating part. The humans had simply disabled and detained his elite mercenaries with an efficiency that bordered on the artful. The message waiting for him on the command center's main display was simple. "Thanks for the workout. Ghost Wolves Special Operations Unit." In the cycles that followed, Vexthar would tell this story countless times in mercenary lounges across the galaxy. It became a cautionary tale, a warning to any who might consider taking contracts against human forces. Because the humans weren't just soldiers, they were something else entirely, something that centuries of advanced military doctrine hadn't prepared them for. They were predators who had turned warfare into an art form, who treated combat like a dance and battlefield improvisation like a game. And perhaps most terrifyingly of all, They seemed to enjoy every moment of it. The seventh Talon never accepted another contract involving humans. Some called them cowards. Vexthar called it wisdom, because he had learned what every mercenary commander would eventually understand. When facing human special forces, victory wasn't just unlikely, it was impossible. They weren't fighting soldiers. They were fighting ghosts who could appear anywhere, who turned their enemies' strengths against them, who treated the most sophisticated security systems as puzzles to be solved rather than barriers to be respected. And they did it all with a terrifying combination of lethal efficiency and evident enjoyment. As Vexthar would later write in his combat memoirs, the humans don't just fight wars, they perfect them. And their special forces, they're not warriors, they're artists of warfare. The sooner you understand that, the longer you'll live. The adaptable enemy. The Grand Analysis Chamber of the Mercenary Guild's Strategic Center was never meant to host emergency sessions. Yet here they were, the representatives of the galaxy's most prestigious mercenary companies, gathered to discuss a single species that had managed to overturn centuries of established combat doctrine in less than a standard cycle. Admiral Zixna, her bioluminescent patterns flickering with concern, manipulated the holographic controls with her neural tendrils. What you're about to see has been compiled from 17 separate encounters with human special forces units. I warn you, this analysis may change everything you think you know about warfare. The chamber darkened, and the first recording began playing. The assembled mercenary leaders watched as a human special forces team, designated Phantom Raiders, reached a supposedly impenetrable Drachnid defense complex. Notice their approach, Zixna highlighted. Standard doctrine calls for either a stealth insertion or overwhelming force. The humans, they do both, simultaneously. The footage showed humans using what appeared to be primitive projectile weapons, but modified in ways that defied conventional engineering. Silent shots that ignored energy shields, explosives that seemed to phase through walls before detonating, equipment that looked cobbled together yet performed better than military-grade gear. They call this field modifications, Zixna explained. Every human operator is part soldier, part engineer, part mad scientist. They don't just use technology. They improvise with it, improve it, combine it in ways our analysts are still struggling to understand. A new recording began playing. This time, it showed a human team responding to an ambush by Kryvak's shock troops. Elite warriors feared across 3 spiral arms. Watch their reaction time, the admiral commanded. The assembled leaders leaned forward, mandibles clicking and tentacles writhing in disbelief. The humans moved faster than combat stimulant-enhanced veterans, yet showed none of the usual signs of chemical enhancement. Natural adrenaline, Zixna said, answering the unspoken question. Their bodies produce combat drugs automatically. They evolved as pursuit predators. Their entire biology is optimized for hunting and combat. The next sequence caused several leaders to emit distress pheromones. A lone human operator, separated from their team, had turned a maintenance bay into a killing ground using nothing but spare parts and what they called duct tape. They don't see limitations, Zixna continued. Where we see a maintenance bay, they see weapons and tools. Where we see walls, they see cover and mobility options. Everything is a potential resource. The briefing continued, each new piece of footage more disturbing than the last. Humans turning ventilation systems into improvised railguns, converting power conduits into trap networks, using enemy communication systems to broadcast what they called psychological warfare music. Apparently something called Fortunate Son was particularly effective. But the most dangerous aspect, Zixna's bioluminescence pulsed with emphasis, is their ability to innovate under pressure. Watch this. The final recording showed a human team trapped in a quantum containment field, technology that should have been completely alien to them. Within minutes, they had not only understood the principles involved, but had reversed the field's polarity using modified personal shields and precise weapon harmonics. They called it surfing the quantum wave, Zixna said. They turned a containment field into a weapon delivery system. Their after-action report listed it as improvised tactics training opportunity. The lights came up, revealing a chamber full of thoroughly unsettled mercenary leaders. But Admiral Zixna wasn't finished. The human term special forces is itself a deception, she revealed. These aren't their elite units. These are their standard operators. Their actual elite teams. She paused, her chromatophores paling. We have only theories about their capabilities. The implications settled over the chamber like a thermal blanket. If these were regular operators, what were their top-tier units capable of? The Strategic Center's official recommendation, Zixna concluded, is an immediate moratorium on accepting contracts against human military forces. The risk assessment algorithms simply cannot compute a scenario where victory is possible. As the leaders filed out, many already sending orders to update their contract exclusion lists, Zixna added one final observation. They have a saying in their military, adapt and overcome. We're beginning to understand that this isn't just a motto. It's a warning. In the cycles that followed, the footage from that briefing became required viewing for every mercenary company in known space. Not because it showed how to fight humans, but because it showed why you shouldn't. As one veteran commander put it, the humans don't just adapt to overcome obstacles. They adapt because they enjoy the challenge. And there's nothing more dangerous than an enemy who sees your best defenses as an opportunity for creative problem-solving. The Mercenary Guild's combat manual was updated with a new primary directive. When facing human special forces, remember, they're not following your rulebook. They're writing their own, and they're doing it in real time. Operation Thunderstrike. The Helios defense platform was supposed to be invincible, orbiting a neutron star, protected by quantum lock shields, and defended by the most advanced AI in known space. It represented the pinnacle of defensive engineering. The Krathor Dominion had spent the equivalent of a small planet's GDP making it impregnable. High Commander Ixel of the Krathor Special Operations Division watched in disbelief as human special forces turned his masterpiece into a training exercise. They're doing what? He demanded, his armored exoskeleton creaking as he leaned forward. There, his tactical officer paused, checking the readings again. They're using our gravity tethers as acceleration lanes. Somehow they've modified their drop pods to surf the gravitational waves. On the main display, small objects streaked through space, riding the very defense systems meant to tear them apart. Each pod contained a human special forces operator, and each operator was, impossibly, broadcasting music. Thunder. The human communication channels crackled. Ah, 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 ah. They're weaponizing classic rock, another officer reported, his sensory frills vibrating with confusion. It's affecting our eyes' processing patterns. The rhythm is disrupting its targeting algorithms. Ixel watched as the pods breached his supposedly impenetrable defenses, moving in patterns that seemed to defy physics. The humans had somehow turned the platform's own defensive grid into a cosmic parkour course. Multiple breaches detected, the tactical officer announced. They're everywhere. The internal security feeds showed chaos erupting across the platform. Human operators moved like shadows, their actions coordinated yet seemingly improvised. They weren't just fighting. They were rewriting the rules of space combat in real time. Squad 3. Execute Operation Ride the Lightning. A human voice commanded over their comm channel. What's Operation Ride the Lightning? Ixel demanded. His answer came as the platform's power grid suddenly surged. The humans had somehow reversed the energy flow of their quantum shields, turning the defensive barrier into a massive electromagnetic pulse generator. They're using our own shield power to create a weapon. The engineering officer reported, mandibles clicking in astonishment. The energy conversion efficiency is impossible. But impossible seemed to be the human specialty. As systems crashed across the platform, Ixel realized they weren't just attacking. They were putting on a show. Each team was trying to outdo the others in terms of tactical creativity. Echo Team, initiating Operation Space Ninja. Another human voice announced cheerfully. Space Ninja. Ixel's translator struggled with the term. A section of the security feed showed human operators using their modified grappling systems to literally run along the walls and ceilings, their movements a deadly dance through zero gravity. They had turned the platform's artificial gravity generators into mobility enhancers. Sir, his tactical officer's voice had taken on a note of resignation. They've reached the main reactor control. They're teaching our eye to play something called Sweet Home Alabama. The platform's lights pulsed in rhythm to the ancient human song. In the command center, Ixel watched his elite forces being systematically dismantled by operators who treated combat like an extreme sport. Sir, we're receiving a transmission from their command unit. The message was simple. Thanks for letting us test our new toys. Vetuo, your eye has great taste in music now. Thunder Squad. Within hours, the platform, pride of the Krathor military, had been completely secured by human forces. Not destroyed, but captured intact, with minimal casualties on either side. The humans had turned a potential bloodbath into what they called a live-fire training opportunity. The after-action report, which would later become required reading at the Mercenary Guild Academy, highlighted several key observations. Human special forces don't just overcome defenses, they repurpose them. Their combat doctrine appears to be, if it's stupid but it works, it's not stupid. They have an inexplicable ability to turn combat operations into rock concerts. Their definition of impossible appears to be hasn't been tried while playing appropriate background music. As Ixel later testified before the Krathor High Command, we didn't just lose a battle. We lost our understanding of what battle is. The humans don't fight wars. They orchestrate them, complete with soundtrack and style points. The incident became known as the Thunder Strike Lesson among mercenary companies. It taught that human special forces weren't just dangerous because of their weapons or tactics. They were dangerous because they refused to accept conventional limitations. As one veteran put it, they turned our most advanced defense platform into their playground, our AI into a music enthusiast, and our gravity weapons into their personal roller coaster. And they did it all while arguing about their operation soundtrack. How do you fight an enemy like that? The answer increasingly was simple. You don't. You update your contract exclusion lists and pray they never decide your facility needs a security audit. Because if there's one thing more terrifying than human special forces in combat, it's human special forces having fun in combat. And they're always having fun. The Psychology of Terror. The Galactic Mercenary Psychology Institute was hosting its annual symposium, but this year was different. Instead of discussing combat stress management or battlefield trauma, every session focused on a single topic: the psychological impact of human special forces on alien combat units. Dr. Zentel, the Institute's leading expert on combat psychology, stood before a packed auditorium of battle-hardened veterans and military theorists. Her crystalline form sparkled under the ambient lighting as she began her presentation. The human phenomenon has created what we're calling tactical terror syndrome, she explained, projecting combat footage onto the massive screen behind her. It's not just their capabilities that terrify our forces, it's their entire approach to warfare. The footage showed a human special forces team during the infamous Nexus Station incident. They had turned the station's maintenance robots into what they called party crashers, complete with strobe lights and sonic weapons that broadcast human combat music. Notice the psychological elements at play, Dr. Zentel highlighted. They're not just defeating their opponents, they're demoralizing them through what humans call style points. Every operation becomes a performance. A new recording began playing, showing helmet footage from a Vraxian elite guard unit. The normally stoic warriors could be heard panicking as human operators seemed to materialize from impossible angles, their movements accompanied by what their databases identified as action movie one-liners. Remember, one human voice echoed through the recording. If you can't be good at it. The line was followed by an explosion that somehow spelled out boom in the vacuum of space. They'd weaponized humor, Dr. Zentel continued. Our forces aren't just afraid of being defeated. They're afraid of being turned into what humans call epic fail compilations. The symposium's mood grew more somber as she displayed psychological assessment data from various mercenary companies. Units that had encountered human special forces showed a marked reluctance to engage in any operation where humans might be present. We're seeing a new form of combat stress, she explained. Traditional warriors prepare for defeat or death, but how do you prepare for an enemy that might turn your defense systems into a light show, your communication channels into a music festival, and your elite forces into unwitting participants in what they call tactical entertainment? A grizzled Kronax war chief raised his cybernetic arm. How do they maintain unit cohesion while behaving so chaotically? Dr. Zentel's crystalline structure pulsed with academic excitement. That's the fascinating part. Their chaos is coordinated. Every seemingly random action is part of a larger performance. They've turned warfare into an art form, complete with improvisation and audience participation, though the audience is usually their unfortunate opponents. The presentation continued, showing case after case of hardened combat units breaking under the psychological pressure of facing human special forces, not because of superior firepower or technology, but because humans had fundamentally changed the nature of combat itself. They don't just defeat you, a veteran mercenary commander testified in one recording. They make you question everything you know about warfare. How do you fight an enemy that treats your most sophisticated defenses as props in their performance? Dr. Zentel introduced a new term, combat theater syndrome. Humans don't just engage in combat, they put on a show. Each operation is a performance, complete with improvisation, soundtrack, and what they call memorable moments. They're not just warriors, they're combat artists. The evidence was compelling. Mercenary companies that had faced human special forces reported a complete shift in how they evaluated combat situations. Traditional threat assessments became meaningless when dealing with an enemy that might turn your quantum encryption systems into what they called a dubstep-like show. The psychological impact extends beyond direct combat, Dr. Zentel concluded. The mere possibility of facing human special forces has changed how mercenary companies operate. They don't just ask if they can win. They ask if they're willing to become part of what humans might call an epic gaming moment. The symposium ended with a new addition to the mercenary psychological preparation protocol. When assessing potential contracts involving human forces, remember, you're not just facing warriors. You're facing directors of combat theater who view every battlefield as a stage, every operation as a performance, and every opponent as an unwitting participant in their latest tactical production. As the attendees filed out, many were heard updating their contract exclusion parameters. Because as one veteran put it, it's not the defeat that breaks you. It's the knowledge that somewhere, a human special forces team is watching their helmet cam footage and rating your defense systems on their cool explosion scale. The final addition to the Institute's Combat Psychology Manual simply read, "The most dangerous opponent isn't the one who can defeat you. It's the one who can turn your defeat into entertainment. And human special forces always ensure the show must go on." The final lesson. The Galactic Mercenary Guild's headquarters, a massive space station orbiting a binary star system, had never been breached in its 1,000-year history. Its defenses were considered exemplary, its security protocols legendary, which made the current situation all the more remarkable. Grand Marshal Xelphos, leader of the Guild's High Council, stared at the holographic message floating in the center of their most secure meeting chamber. "Thanks for hosting our training exercise. Great security setup. Gave our rookies some good practice. P.S. Your coffee machine now makes better lats. You're welcome." Orbital Drop Bears, Human Special Forces. The chamber, normally filled with the galaxy's most elite mercenary commanders, was utterly silent. Nobody wanted to be the first to acknowledge that human special forces had breached their headquarters just to practice. How? Selthos finally asked, their crystalline form vibrating with a mixture of awe and resignation. The Guild's chief of security, a cybernetically enhanced Vexnar, activated the security playback. What they saw defied conventional military logic. The humans had turned their quantum defense grid into what they called a disco ball. They'd reprogrammed security drones to serve refreshments. They'd even left detailed notes on improving various systems, complete with smiley faces and something called memes. They were here for 6 hours, the security chief reported. They reorganized our armory by color and effectiveness. And they paused, mandibles twitching, aesthetic appeal. More footage played. Human operators had apparently held a contest to see who could breach secure areas in the most creative way. The winner had used the station's waste disposal system as a transport network, calling it Operation Mario Pipeline. They left this in the command center. Another council member added, projecting a new hologram. It was a training manual titled Beginner's Guide to Dynamic Entry and Facility Remodeling, with style. The contents were simultaneously horrifying and impressive. The humans had documented 47 different ways to breach impenetrable defenses, rated by difficulty, style points, and what they called coolness factor. This isn't just a breach, Selthos realized. This is a message. The final entry in the manual made that clear. Remember, it's not about whether you can break in. It's about how much fun you have doing it. Thanks for letting us practice. See you next training cycle. As the implications sank in, the council realized they'd received the ultimate lesson about human special forces. It wasn't just their capabilities that made them terrifying. It was their attitude. They didn't view impossible defenses as obstacles. They saw them as challenges, opportunities for creativity, chances to innovate. Every security system was a puzzle to be solved. Every defense grid a chance to try something new. Update the guild protocols, Selthos commanded. All members are to be informed. Human special forces don't follow the rules of engagement. They rewrite them. They don't overcome defenses. They repurpose them. And most importantly, they don't just complete missions. They turn them into training opportunities. The new guild manual, distributed across the galaxy, included a special section titled Human Special Forces, Why They're Everyone's Worst Nightmare. The key points were simple. They view impossible situations as creative challenges. They treat advanced technology like building blocks. They turn combat into performance art. They're always training, always improving, always innovating. They're having fun, and that's the scariest part. The final line in the manual became famous throughout mercenary space. If you hear human special forces laughing during an operation, you've already lost. Not because they're defeating you, but because they're using your best defenses to teach their rookies new tricks. As if to emphasize this point, the guild headquarters had been left with a new protocol. Every morning, it played something called the Final Countdown through the station's speaker system. Attempts to remove this feature only resulted in the AI adding more songs to its playlist. The message was clear. Human special forces weren't just warriors. They were innovators who treated warfare like an art form, combat like a performance, and every operation like a chance to try something new. As Selthos noted in their final report, we didn't just learn why they're feared. We learned why they're unstoppable. They don't fight because they have to. They fight because they want to see what's possible, and in doing so, they've changed the very nature of warfare itself. The guild headquarters now serves as a reminder of this lesson. Every morning, as the final countdown plays through its halls, its inhabitants remember, somewhere out there, human special forces are probably planning their next training exercise, and they're definitely going to enjoy it.